Raytheon Missile Systems. We have about 10,000 employees in Tucson, and then the Missile Systems company of the corporate Raytheon, we have 11,000 employees all over the world. With that said, I run the community and government relations for the RMS, or the Missile Systems part. We have 6 off-sites that I oversee, which are smaller places other than in Tucson. With 10,000 people in Tucson, that's obviously the bulk of what we do. We use, in the ebb and flow of corporate social responsibility, community relations, whatever you want to call it, the changes have, I think all of us have seen trends, right? Different things that we all care about. But historically, and that's one of the things I talked to Kelly about, talking about, is there are 2 groups in Tucson that we have had long-term relationships with. One is Sunnyside Unified School District, which happens to be the district that surrounds the largest plant or the largest facility. And then secondly with the University of Arizona. And I don't mean secondly like as in less, I'm just talking about 2. Obviously very different. But I think for the present day, for what's gone on in the last 5 years, we have a very strong commitment of working with the Sunnyside Unified School District at all levels, but also then with their foundation. And so with that, that includes tutoring and mentoring in both, well, we've done it at grade school, we do it in the middle school and in the high schools. This is typically, all of their schools are Title I schools in Sunnyside. So, but the proportion is different depending on the schools. Yes, I talk about this. So that's the overview. So we are talking the people who live in the Sunnyside School District are not typically the employees at Raytheon. Our people have to be U.S. citizens who can get a clearance and all have at least 1 degree. 6,500 of us are engineers. I am not one of them. But it'll give you an idea. Almost everyone has not only 1 degree, but 2 degrees. And a lot of Sunnyside is kind of the diametrically opposed version of a community. So what we've done is a lot of work in those communities, in those schools specifically, to strongly encourage, to teach, to mentor, to help those students to get through school to actually graduate from high school, very often being the first in their families. And then to look to assist in how you fill out an application for a scholarship. We have programs where we support students. We've had programs where students are supported who go 2 years to Pima Community College and then 2 years to the university. Our main focus is in STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that's 60% of my funding. 20% of my funding goes to support warfighter kind of activities, so the VA, Davis Monthan, et cetera, in our community. And then another 20% is everything else. But to go back into 60% spend in STEM education. So what we do is we not only give them money, but we do math nights, for example, at the middle school and at the high schools. And we have girls mentoring programs with our female engineers at the high schools. We have we have in the past done especially intensive 2-week assisting the children in learning how to pass Ames, how to be comfortable. And we've worked with the principals of several schools where it's the kids on the cusp who should be able to pass it if you just give them a little more attention. And I've got to say, our engineers and our scientists and our financial are great at coming in and working one-on-one with the students and really assisting that. We've seen a great benefit. We've served, in talking to our volunteer coordinator today, I said, how many students would you say in Sunnyside we've served? And she said, well over 2,000 to 3,000. So, and that's just in the last 5 years. So that was the commitment that I hope I've covered what you had in mind, but a strong collaboration between the two, between Raytheon and this. Yes?
Can I ask questions?
Sure, you could ask anything. I just wanted to stay to my 5 minutes.
Oh, sure. So how are you recruiting your volunteers? How are you
We
motivating them
use
to get out
the
there?
national program called Volunteer Match, and the volunteer coordinator that I was talking about, it really helps if you have a retired engineer run that. Because she goes to the directorates and says, Jessica, how about AMDEW something being sponsoring and supporting with bringing the pizza, bringing the AGs, and the people to man the math nights. And they either do Sunnyside High School or Challenger Middle School. And so the directors can choose, the directorates will choose. I think we could do junior high or high school. And what's so interesting, these are PhD engineers who call in and say, can you give me the information first so I really know what I'm talking about? I'm like, oh, help. But they want a confidence level. And we have found, rather than one-on-one, what works well for us is if they do it with the people they work with, they have a comfort in doing it that way. So as much as we can, we work with trying to get, if you've never volunteered before, a comfort for our volunteers in volunteering together. Very often, they will volunteer to come back the additional nights, even if their directorate, their responsibility chain is not doing it. But it took that initial kind of doing for them, and we make sure that we have, and the one thing I wanted to say very quickly is, this is a long-term commitment. This isn't your and fix something in 18 months or 2 years and going on to another project. Literally, we are now seeing the kids that we help tutor in 3rd grade to pass Ames are now, some of them are either in junior high, and we had a few older kids who are now seniors in high school. So they've heard us talking about graduating from school, attending school, because we give them we give our people a little bit of talking points going in, you know, how important it is to stay in school. You can't just go to college, you've got to graduate from college, that kind of thing. And one of the neat things is all of our student helpers now at Sunnyside have seen us for probably 6 years. And in those 6 years, they are now all talking about graduating and going to college. Some of it not realistic, but at least talking about it. Yes, Sharon.
Okay, talk about the Science Day that Raytheon and IBM do every year that's community-wide and kind of how that.
For 8 years now, we do what's called Math and Science Fun Fest. Science and Math Fun Fest. And it's held down at the community center. And these are 3 days. We have all kinds of volunteers, not only ours, but IBM's, TEP's, Freeport-McMoran, Embry-Riddle, all different kinds of people who come. And it's held in the largest open space in the convention center in Tucson. The interesting part is it's so well done or so well thought of that the math and science teachers, in less than 24 hours, all 3 days will be totally filled. And then we have a waiting list that we go to the first of the next year. We typically do it in November. This last year we did it to tie with the Arizona Centennial, so we did it in February. It's an intense 3 days of activities that the children going through can participate in. We aim for middle school and students, but that doesn't always mean you only have middle school students, as we all know. And they come with their teachers and their whoever else is their aides and, you know, parental volunteers and all that. And it's like, how many, 100 plus exhibits, but everything's hands-on. So you're trying to figure out what to do with kids for 3 days that's hands-on, that they can get through inside of like 90 seconds to 3 minutes, right? Get in and make. And the line that's always longest is where they get to touch the brains from the University of Arizona, and because you get to put on gloves and go in. And the other one is doing liquid nitrogen ice cream, of course. The other thing that we participate in that's all sort of in this community-wide is the book festival. The book festival was just last weekend in Tucson. It's the 4th largest book festival in the country. And they have a specific section that's called Science City. And what we as Raytheon do is we don't do, oh, I was supposed to bring bookmarks to you all, I forgot, I'm sorry. Anyway, but what we do is we do a make and take, so that the kids get to come in and make something and take it in a bag out with them. And where other people, other, exhibits, other people do just, here's all this, literature and that kind of thing, or come and see. So we've become known as the make and take group, which is fine, because I have lots of wonderful engineers who Rosemary, cajoles into coming and spinning, because it never got above 45 degrees on Saturday in Tucson, and it was pretty darn chilly. And it runs from 9 to 5. But those two events are big community events that the teachers really look forward to, and that the parents and families look forward to, just to give you an idea of what we do in Tucson. I mean, just to, as an idea of what goes on out there. What other questions should I, yes?
Do you,
Marissa?
first of all, a couple questions. One is, do you train your engineers in mentoring? Do they get any kind of sort of experiential exposure to what does it mean to be a mentor, and particularly kids that are middle school, if they've never taught before, it's like, what do they know of? And the second question is, do you evaluate, you're talking about the kids that, are now getting ready to graduate, do you have any kind of tracking? So you guys know at Raytheon, this is the, 600 kids we interacted with, by the time they are seniors, 80% of them graduate. Are you tracking anything like that?
Okay, there is a program in Volunteer Match that we have that everybody has to take.
Okay.
It's 20 to, well, it takes you 20 minutes to get through it. Now, when you do something, at your desk in a large building, and then you take it to a classroom with 45 screaming loud children, doesn't necessarily always translate. What you see is always this perfect video, and then what you have is the reality. And so I would say what we do is, when they get there, we remind them, talk about, so as they come in, our engineers come in and sign in, remind them, remember to tell them about, and, it's important to go to college, it's important to graduate from college. They can do this, how the math that you're teaching or that you're assisting with is applicable in that engineer's everyday life. Because one of the biggest issues we see, as you all probably know if you're involved in education, or for those of you who are, is that ability to translate it into real life. So the more we do of that kind of thing, the better off. Now, on the tracking side of things, yes, we have very good numbers that we can pull on the Ames tutoring, because we could show like about a 7-point change in the testing, which is phenomenally good. But we had a fabulous couple of principals who specifically pulled those kids that were on the cusp. So that helped. I mean, I will be the first to admit that certainly helped, versus the students down here who weren't going to get it in 2 weeks, 3 nights of 2 hours. But the other part that is, it's so long-term that the tracking has been minimally successful. But remember, we're just now getting some of the tracking. So we'll see how this, but so far, one of the neat things is, a lot of the students that we did the early tracking with, if we stayed with their schools and they stayed with coming to the tutoring and math nights and all of that sort of thing, there's a much higher success rate of Sunnyside freshman students drop out at 50% before they graduate, before they are eligible to graduate from high school. So from the time you're a freshman to this, you have a 50% chance of dropping out of school as a freshman.
They also have the highest pregnancy rate
Of any school district in that. So those numbers, if we can keep some of these kids just in school, we've done well. So that's stay in school, stay in school, stay in school. There's a number of other event kind of things that we do, but I was trying to bring you the tutoring mentoring because it's such an ongoing, all school year kind of thing. Our relationship with the university is a little bit different. Obviously, we do a lot of tutoring and mentoring of engineering students, math students, science students. We participate with them in a different way because we can also have a business side with all of the SIBR money and different ways of working with the university. But it's a very strong relationship that we've had, actually with all 3 state universities, with the colleges of engineering and math and science. Questions? And obviously my focus is totally STEM. If you want to talk to me about arts, I'd love to, but it's not what we're going to find. Yes?
How much time do your volunteers spend with the teachers in aligning what the teachers are doing with what the volunteers can provide support in?
Okay, if I understand your question correctly, how much time do our volunteers spend with the teachers? Very little, because the teachers what we are assisting with is very specific things. So the teachers hand out the sheets, and they very often will know what's going to be on the math that they're going to be covering, or the science principles that they're going to be covering. The engineers already know what that is. The teacher says this, and one of the things that's happened is we've had the same people volunteering so well for so long. You know how when you have somebody who's just really good at it, the teachers know the students who need to be with who. And so the teachers would say, Jessica, Jessica, would you work with Juan over here? And that's because she knows that Jessica has the patience to do it and is very supportive, and is going to be, if he's just needing the confidence to test, the teachers will do the match, and they will do the very brief. I know that you can really help Juan. She's an engineer at Raytheon, and she can help you with whatever it is they're doing that night. But as far as, we don't really go in and teach, remember. This is all after school. It's 4:30 to 6:30, usually on a Thursday before our 980 Friday. It just works out that way. Of course, we have to work with the school schedules, and the busing schedules of this schedule and all the work schedules that we have. So, but to say that there's a whole lot, because what it is, the engineers, if they weren't comfortable when they've had all the paperwork emailed to them, they're very comfortable with knowing the material they're going to cover. So there's not a whole lot of freedom there. Yes?
I'm guessing with the high school students it's not as important as it is with the middle school, but is there any sort of outreach to the parents and any programming to get them? Because, I mean, without their support, I'm guessing the success in having their students involved is going to be reduced.
Non-existent. Close to it. We work really hard to try to get the parents there. I can tell you some interesting, fun war stories. We don't have time for that. But it's so important. But so often, the parents in Sunnyside have no experience whatsoever in what we're trying to say, what we're trying to do, which is graduate from high school. They've typically done very little of high school, be fluent in English, be able to read and comprehend. They don't read or write typically very well in English or Spanish or in any language. So there's one of the things that we work with the school is to get the parents, and with the younger children, we always do a congratulatory evening at the end where they get awards, and the parents come, and we provide food, and they bring all the siblings, and we have everybody. When we work with the little ones, it's fine that the parents, we do it like in their cafetorium, and it's okay if parents sit at one end of the room, at the room or across the table while the engineer is working with the student, because typically they don't know the material themselves, the parents don't. So it's sort of a multi-way teaching or assisting going on. At the high school level, the independence from the teacher, the parents is considerably greater. And at Sunnyside, there's always wrestling and football and baseball that are going to come first. So it's actually working with the administration to not modify the grades of the kids doing the sports, so that if you aren't passing, you do have to come first. And there's always a balance there. But we always do try to work with the parents. I'll tell you a real quick sad story. So one of the students that we were working with and were concerned about, because almost instantly our engineers are very they can give you full-page report of the child they just assisted, of the 3 children that they just assisted for 2 hours, and then all their concerns. Well, there was a child, a boy, that we were quite concerned about, and when, because we can't go to the parents, but when the designated counselors from the high school went, and because the child had huge dropout, and what this engineer was saying is, he can do it if he would just come. If he would just attend, we know he can do it. We can, you know, we can teach him to do it, you know, kind of thing. We can assist with this. And it was so interesting because the parents didn't care whether he went to school or not. He was 14, turning 15, and as far as they were concerned, they did not care if the child, and so they were not supporting getting him to school, or clothes to school, or food for school, or any of that. So, and that's one anecdote, but by and large, the students who now come, I think, very much appreciate it, and it's become sort of the social thing to do on these nights at Sunnyside, which is kind of interesting, because you have this huge line out the door, and you have all the boyfriends and all the girlfriends hanging on each other, and then you promptly separate all that out, and then you put them in all the different classrooms, and the last time I think we had 200 students, and we had 83 engineers, I think it was, so that you're trying to work not more than 2 to 3 on one, and your more experienced engineers get the 3, and your people who are doing it for the first time get work with the teacher on that part of it. So who can go sit with who that's gonna, you know. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of TLC that goes with it. And I would say the only other thing I would say is to do all of this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of management time on our side. It's not just a matter of I signed up there to volunteer match and I show up and I report my hours and it's done. There's a huge, to make it successful, there's a huge additional layer that goes with it. And I probably told you a whole lot more about it than you ever wanted to know. Okay, any other questions? I'm here.